This is a pair of Nike football cleats painted to mirror the iconic Nike SB Dunks. Now I know what you're thinking. What's the secret behind that magic stencil? But here's the twist. It's not a stencil at all. So in this video, I'll reveal the step-by-step process to transform your cleats into any shoe you desire, along with some of the subtle techniques that'll leave your audience thinking there's no way that's painted. First things first, let's get our template made. You can start by photographing your base cleat model or searching for a stock image online, which is what I did. Next, load that into a design software like Procreate or Photoshop. Return to Google and type in the name of the base shoe you are trying to recreate, followed by the word template. Our aim is to find a black and white picture similar to that of a coloring book page. We can then place that over our stock image and set the blend mode to multiply. In multiply mode, light colors become less opaque and only the darker colors remain. Now you can see all the Nike Dunk panels superimposed on your base cleats. Scale the template for a nice tight fit. Save this image and we'll be back for it soon. I also made a quick mock of how I plan to turn these into a Seahawks theme for Quandre Diggs. The cleat I'm working on today isn't an all-white base, so I need to apply some type of base or primer coat. This will enable us to sketch right on top. After our prep work, I'll paint a couple coats of light gray to cover up the blue. It doesn't really need to be perfect, just light enough to see the sketch on top. Load the template that we made onto a nearby screen that you can easily see. For the sketch, I'll use a thermogenic FriXion pen. By using one of these, you can easily erase your lines once we start sketching if you make a mistake just by applying heat. It can also be painted over, unlike other pen or pencil marks that can be difficult to cover. There are a few things to bear in mind before you begin sketching. You'll want to try to identify some anchor points or key points on the template. There will be places where your template for the desired shoe intersects with your original base cleat. In this case, the bottom lace hole flap is centered inside the mudguard panel on the Dunks. Also, the back heel panel aligns almost exactly with this curve on the cleat's sole plate. When you're sketching out the new panels, try to take advantage of your base cleat's contours and naturally occurring lines. Once you have identified some of these anchor points, you can begin sketching. Remember, this is a crude and rough draft that we'll refine as we go. If your lines just aren't lining, or if you made something the wrong size, use that thermo capability to your advantage to simply erase them. Review your line work from different angles as well to give you a fresh perspective. For example, make sure all of your curves look the same inside and outside of your toe box. Repeat these same steps on the other shoe and compare both shoes side by side to ensure everything looks symmetrical. After we've laid down the initial sketch, here's how things look. Typically when we move into painting, I start by painting the panels stacked underneath each other. So in the case of a Nike Dunk, the quarter panels and toe box are recessed behind the other panels. These can be airbrushed in or painted by hand. Airbrushing does have the disadvantage that it is harder to color inside the lines, and you may end up covering up some of your sketch. It's not the end of the world though, as you can just draw that back in on top. But we will need those lines as visible as possible for our next trick, which will really help sell the illusion that this is not just another 2D painted cleat. Let's darken the same blue we just used by adding some black and airbrushing a drop shadow right along the exact lines of the surrounding panels. Our project will really start to develop depth this way. Keeping it subtle is key here, so don't overdo it. Painting the surrounding panels will be your next step. You'll also want to start refining the panel's general shapes here as well. Start by tracing the outlines with a brush you feel really comfortable with and take your time to fix any shakiness from the original line work. After that, we can color within the lines. This is always the part of the process where I really start to question if this is even going to work out or not. Things are slowly beginning to come together, but it just doesn't quite look right yet. But we'll get there. The next step is specific to my design, as I need to paint a pattern. Now that we have all of our black panels complete, what I'm going to do is tape off everything that's going to remain blue, and then I'm going to airbrush in some different browns and dark grays so that we can start the process of weathering or aging up this cement print. I've always loved how aged the Supreme Dunks look, so I want to try and replicate that look here. Once again, we are trying to be as precise as possible when masking off the blue panels so that none of our paint leaks below. Now here's what I ended up with. Now let's airbrush in some of those various brown and gray streaks throughout the upper. Alright, we're trying something kind of new here. I think it actually looks pretty cool, and I can't wait to see what happens once we peel back all of the cement print. But there is one potential major issue. If there is any spots where I need to do touch-ups, since it's not solid black anymore, it's going to be a lot harder for me to find a perfect color match to really touch up any of the cement print lines. So we have to hope that that turns out extremely clean once we peel all of that back. Now it's time to unweed our cement print stencil. Does anybody else find this sound quite satisfying, or is it just me? When you're actually placing the stencil, even if the pattern spans the entire shoe, it'll be much easier for you to break it into different parts since we're not working on a flat surface. Using a slow diagonal motion, I'll peel back the transfer tape while pushing down on any parts where I've already removed it. Because the cement print is so free-flowing and organic, it's easy to connect the pieces later down the line or add any excess pieces that you end up with in between. Now that our stencil's in place, time for the painting.
3, 4.
We'll use black to seal the stencil, a few coats of light gray on top, and then a few random spots or streaks of browns, grays, and beiges. Alright, moment of truth. Let's start to peel all of this back and see what we have underneath. Thankfully, our cement print turned out super crispy, and now we can see what else lies beneath. Have no fear if anything looks misaligned at this point. I had the same problem when attempting this technique my first few times. You're constantly taping and retaping panels that you've already painted, working with all of these different shapes and curves, so no need to worry, as we'll be able to fix all of these mistakes very soon. Next, we'll add our Nike swoosh. To perfect our alignment, lay down the positive portion first and then heat it in place. Then lay down the negative portion. I'm going to hit this with some Seahawks Action Green. As you peel that back, you can really see things starting to take form. In order to perfect my drop shadows, I'm covering up the Nike swoosh and cement print panels again, as there were a few parts that I needed to touch up. Then, take a look at your desired base shoe and try to see where any panels overlap one another. To help sell the three-dimensional look, add a simple drop shadow to these spots as well. Dark gray drop shadows will be applied under the swoosh and around the eye stays here. If a drop shadow on the panel beneath doesn't make sense for any reason, you can also add a highlight to the panel above to achieve a similar effect. With just a little bit of shading, everything stands out so much more. Our final step will truly take these to the next level. To begin, I will add as small of an outline as possible around each panel. This will be the final chance to make any revisions needed to your individual panels. Then, take your tiny detail brush, or even try out the toothpick gang method to paint in some of the stitching. It's this step right here that will really fool people into thinking that they're stitched right on. And here's a closer look at all of those little details. I know cleats can be intimidating, but watching them hit the field can be one of the most rewarding experiences possible. But if they aren't built to last, none of your artistry or hard work matters. If you want to ensure that you're doing everything to truly create the best product possible, make sure you check out this video next. Alright guys, everybody get out there and just create.